don't think so. I think, what do you think?
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, second, my roll call, please. Mr. Conley? Here. Mrs. Mitchell? Here. Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Dr. Krebs?
Here.
Mr. Stahl?
Here.
Ms. Reed? Here. Mr. Myers?
Here.
All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? So moved. By Mr. Stahl, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion?
Practice facility.
All those in favor of the amended motion to amend the agenda, favor signify by aye. Aye. Nays? Passes 7-0. All right, that takes us to the superintendent report. Before we do that, just so everyone is here, has not filled out a card. If you intend to address the board during the call to the public, you need to fill out a card, and place it in the box there. All right, so that's what I'll
You know, just a couple things really quickly. First off, things are going extremely well across the district. Our bread and butter, teaching and learning. We've spent a lot of time in classrooms. We're having a fantastic year. The students are working hard. The teachers are working hard. Really proud of the work that they're doing, and just want to say great things are happening in our classrooms. And I just want to say thank you to our teachers. The main thing here. In addition to that, we're wrapping up our fall sports season. Fall activities. I want to congratulate all those that were involved in athletics activities. Our performing arts program they're doing a lot of performances. Last week we had a choir concert, very well attended at the PAC. And this week, both the band program and the orchestra program will both have concerts this week, and that's fantastic. They're doing a great job. So it's been really fun. It's been a great year. I just want to say thank you and appreciate all the support of the community. We are having a school play. It's going to be the Wizard of Oz, and they've already had tryouts, and they've set their lineups, and they're going to be running. So we're full steam ahead. So so really pleased about that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, this was brought up to me, but I want to bring it up to the board. The city is considering changes filled with the topic of marijuana. And so I want to throw it back to the Board of Education. Proposal, some people have made suggestions to the Board of Education to consider doing a resolution, perhaps in opposition to that. And I'm going to turn it over to the board. Does the board wish for any sort of resolution on that topic of marijuana in the city? So pass it back to the Board of Education.
And an example of what that
And so we can craft one. I guess what I'm asking is, do you want to work on crafting something? What was suggested, it would be a resolution in opposition of the city. Suggestion was, this is not a, you don't get to make a decision about this. This is the decision is made by the city. Would you like to declare what your position is? Declare, this is your position. Something along those lines.
It's essentially a non-binding resolution, similar to what we did when there was, I recall last year, we did a resolution, for, as a board, something I remember, we did a resolution, it was basically stating our position, yeah, it was stating, something with respect to what the state was deciding, it wasn't a policy or what we were deciding, it was, we were going to, let's do MASB as a precedent where, yeah, they had a template, resolution, about, it was unanimous. So it was something that we agreed to go for the resolution, but procedurally, unless there's unanimity among us to, agree on some form of resolution, we have to draft it, we have to review it and approve it, then unless there is unanimity, then probably would be upward. So we want to bring it forward as a formal motion because of that direction. So I certainly welcome everyone's. That's right. That's what I said. Well, I guess we're going to start moving, please. Let everyone have their opportunity. Well, nobody suggested that they have, what they were advocating, what they're saying is that
protocol, and is there any questions or anything from the board?
Thank you. Yeah, all right, we are now to the call to the public portion of our agenda. What we are doing as part of our call to the public is it's being separated into two components. The first portion, which is where we are at now, is the call to the public for action items only, meaning that we are only going to be identifying speakers by the cards that have been submitted. You can come up and address the board at this juncture regarding any of the items that are on our agenda for action this evening. And there's a list of those items on our agenda. If your intent is to not address the items on the agenda, our four action items, I should say, I will call your card, but it will be at the latter portion of our meeting where we have the follow-up call. So,
Cards for
all right, so having received no cards for anyone that wanted to address the board with regard to the four action items only, we will close that portion of the agenda and move to four action. Item A, the regular meeting minutes of September 27, 2021. We have a motion. Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion?
Comment I'd like to make about the meeting on Monday, September 27th. First of all, a question was raised at that meeting regarding the practice of the policy committee and the health and safety policy committee, which includes board members Ms. Reed, Ms. Mitchell, and me. We've followed the established protocol. When the Neola policies come forward to the committee, we consider the recommendations by our representative from Neola. We ask for input from those most knowledgeable about the topics of the policy. For example, we forward policies related to finance to Mr. Engleder, policies related to curriculum to Mrs. Mosier, and so on. With all feedback to arrive at a mutually agreed upon recommendation for policies to present to the board at the board table. After this approval, the committee will forward these policies for review to the board table as for future action. When a summary discussion is given to the items, this is an opportunity for the entire board to ask questions and clarification of any new revised policies. Our typical procedure has been to bring them to the next board meeting for a vote as a for future item. For action item. At the last meeting, on Monday, September 27th, Mr. Trombley asked for clarification of the process that was used by the policy committee. He went further and accused the committee of not following this procedure. And in fact, he accused the committee of sneaking through revisions to the existing mask and face covering policy exemption. Mr. Trombley stated, and I quote, "It seems very unlikely that you have 3 people who voted to continue to wear masks in school that are the 3 people that are on the policy committee. And then when there's a policy in regards to masks that's not brought to our attention, now why is that?" This statement can be found in the recording from the September 27th meeting at 2 hours, 44 minutes, and 25 seconds. Further in the recording, at 2:49:11, Mr. Trombley stated, "All I can do is draw the conclusion, well, the 3 people who voted not to remove the masks are people that are the ones on the policy committee, and they just didn't want to bring it to the rest of us." Went on to say, "Because no one brought it to our attention, because I thought the ideas of these committees are to vet this stuff and bring it to the board as what are changes, and I didn't hear anything about a change in regards to this when this was discussed, we discussed it for future." That is a direct quote. Mr. Connolly replied at 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 58 seconds, "I didn't know it was in there." Accusations of this unethical behavior by the Health, Safety, and Policy Committee members of sneaking through policies are unwarranted, lies, and slanderous. First, the packet of the Neola policy revisions, including the revisions of the mask and face coverings policy, was brought forward and discussed in the For Future Action segment at the board meeting on Monday, August 23rd. Ms. Reed began to discuss all policies in the Neola packet at that meeting, as is a typical protocol of this committee. He began her discussion at 4 hours, 51 minutes, and 15 seconds. Then, at 4 hours, 53 minutes, and 35 seconds, Ms. Reed described the changes in Neola's recommendation of the mask and face covering policy. This can also be found starting on page 162 from that board packet. Mr. Connolly, at 4:54:41, asked a follow-up question for clarification regarding this mask and face covering policy, which can be found in that video. It should be noted that Mr. Trombley walked out of the August 23rd meeting at 4 hours, 51 minutes, and 44 seconds, while Ms. Reed was in the midst of describing the suggested modifications of the Neola policies. Because of this, Mr. Trombley was not present for the entire discussion surrounding masks and face covering policies. He is still responsible for the content of the remainder of the meeting. Mr. Trombley's failure to follow up with content after he walks out on a meeting is on him. While Mr. Trombley stated that the policy pages were too much for him to read in the board packet of September 27th at 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 46 seconds, that reading the packets is the responsibility of all board members. That he states at the board table an unwillingness to do the preparation that's required for a meeting is a dereliction of his responsibility. The excerpts from the August 23rd meeting clearly show two facts. First, Mr. Trombley's statements regarding the Health, Safety, and Policy Committee trying to sneak through a policy is unwarranted, factually incorrect, and quite frankly slanderous. Number two, Mr. Connolly's statement of not knowing this policy revisions were there is in direct conflict with his questioning of Ms. Reed regarding the policies during this meeting. Myers, I'm asking you, what recourse is there when members of the board present false and damaging information at the board table?
Person who was in a group of wasn't wearing a mask. All those comments just now, and then she came to the board with a mask. So now, that's a fact. I was there. I saw it. That's not Israel. You said you're a mask. There wasn't a mask there. So now you're making comments about character, slanders.
I've always viewed my role as the president. I've always felt like we're all elected officials. We all should earn the respect and the right to have latitude and leeway to express what we believe is appropriate regarding issues. So I've always been of the mindset in that how I view my role in that capacity is being deferential and letting people, giving people a vote to be able to address things on particular issues as they see it forward. The problem is that in so doing, there's been clearly instances which honestly Dr. Kress has addressed this evening, where when we debate issues, they have evolved into personal attacks. Okay, that's completely contrary to policy. It's a policy. are elected officials, and we are to make issues, not pursue them. And they're not the same. And when issues are being discussed, our job is to make issues. We are not supposed to be personal attacks. Obviously, that those things have happened. They're unacceptable. They're unprofessional. They are contrary to how we should act as a board, and we need to. And frankly, I think it means that I have to be more diligent in enforcing more stringent Robert's rules of order, and I think that's what I will do. Okay. The fact of the matter is that we, and while we're on the topic, what happened during the call to the public was an absolute embarrassment. It was a disgrace to witness, and it was an embarrassment to be a part of. Okay, we're all professionals. We need to act like professionals. Not only do we diminish our stature and how we're viewed as a board, but we look like a laughing stock as a district to the public. That should never happen. It's unacceptable, and if the way to rein that in and ensure that doesn't happen again is by taking a proactive approach with everybody, then I guess I'll do that. It's unfortunate because we're all elected officials and adults in Chatham, and there shouldn't be a need to police anyone, quite frankly, in my role or in anybody's role on this board. So, having said that, the record speaks for itself. Let's leave it at that.
Like you said, Roger, we are all elected people up here. And to me, if you're going to hold a public office, I guess you have to have some thick skin. And, you know, it's a shame that somebody's feelings get hurt by comments from other people, but that's a fact of life, and that's what ends up happening. Unfortunately, you know, maybe some people are more sensitive than other people are when it comes to that. I heard what Dr. Krebs said. I sent Alicia, and I sent Laura Mitchell an apology as well, telling them that I was sorry if I hurt their feelings or if I threw them under the bus that night, and I didn't mean to. Those weren't my intentions. But I thought it was worth an apology, and I went ahead and I certainly apologized to them. And that was the extent.
Okay. Any further discussion?
It's not a case of hurting people. Of sharing misinformation at the board because somebody did not do their work, their due diligence to prepare for a meeting.
I stated my opinion like I'm entitled to.
Okay. Motion on the table is for approval of minutes. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? So that passes 6-0 with one abstention. Next item on the agenda, item B, discussion meeting minutes of September 29, 2021. Do a motion. Mitchell. Supported by Dr. Kraft. So, motion by Ms. Mitchell, supported by Dr. Kraft. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We have 3 abstentions. So that, that passes 4-0 with 3 abstentions. All right. Next item is C, special meeting minutes of October 6, 2021. Do a motion. Dr. Mitchell, support. Dr. Kraft, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. All right, that moves us to item D, human resource reports. Mr. Scaler.
Yes, good evening. The Human Resource Report is presented for your review. We had 2 resignations, 2 new hires, and 1 transition to fill those positions. It is recommended that you accept the Human Resource Report as presented.
Reference to the report as presented is we had one in place.
At place.
That's That's the one we're acting on, not the one that was.
Correct. Yep, that was updated late last week, yes.
Moved by Mr. Stoss, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? I have one question. Just kidding.
Yes, sir.
This is a little different than, historically, we would actually give the first word in the packet, and unless you guys have to go back.
Mhm.
There were, the two resignations, personal, on the phone, they just state, they just give a statement of personal reasons without any elaboration.
Sometimes they let us know why, other times they don't, but yes.
Is there any other elaboration regarding these two?
Yes, one took moved from the classroom to a media center position in another district, and another one moved into a similar teaching position in a district closer to where they work. I'm sorry, where they live, thank you, yes. Yes. Yes.
All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Nays, that passes 7-0. Next item is item E, donation ladders.
Yeah, we, Beth and Ray Siegler, who live here in Brighton, are wanting to donate 15 28-foot extension ladders and one aluminum ladder. They used to run a business where they needed a lot of ladders. They have since ceased that operation, and they cut back some brush and realized they're all sitting back there, and they'd like to donate them to us to use in our maintenance department, as well as and/or distribute within the community as we see fit. So we are asking that you accept those tonight so that I can get a letter out to them tomorrow.
All right, good motion. Moved by Ms. Reed. Supported by Mr. Stahl. Any discussion?
By all means, certainly appreciate when people donate things to Brighton area schools. But what are we gonna do with 28 ladders?
Oh, 15
ladders?
15 28-footers.
You only got 5 maintenance guys.
Right. They
2
can,
each get a ladder besides the ones they've already got?
I figured we're probably going to end up giving some out to the city and stuff like that. So
Well, and that brings up where I'm going with this. If you look in the back of the high school, back by the maintenance garage, you see a lot of old vehicles that don't run that are sitting out there. People donate them to us because maybe they don't know what else to do with them, or they get a tax write-off, whatever the idea is for donation. But those vehicles sit there and they don't get worked on. Say we want to take them, but again, the kids don't work on them. They're old vehicles. They don't need to work on those old vehicles. I think we have to have something in place where, again, we accept donations, which are great when people want to donate things, but I don't think Brighton area schools needs any more trash donated. Things that leaves it up to us to in turn get rid of, because things are only collecting. They're not going away from Brighton schools. They sit out there for 3 years, 5 years. Nobody does anything with them, and they sit there. So as a board, I think, again, it's great to accept donations, but we should have something that will allow us maybe not to accept a donation or something else to figure out what to do with it. Because again, we just can't keep taking some people's stuff that's junk that has no meaning or good to us as well. great if we could, Ken, I don't know. But I don't know who takes them or,
That's not a problem.
I guess, follow up, I mean, I share this concern about the safety aspect of, you know, 180 foot ladders.
Yeah.
We know what condition they're in, has anybody looked at these ladders?
Yeah.
Assessed them? And frankly, for that matter, as facilities, have they said whether this is something that we can use or likely to use, or, because the other thing is that we're just clearing out the building to something else, and it's not safe. We're just asking a potential safety issue down the road, which I don't want to be part of that either.
Yeah, I haven't laid eyes on them. Scott Jacobs was out and took a look at them, said that we could use them. I don't know about the certification process on the ladder, but we can get that done. And we can make sure that we're replacing whatever we have with, or scrapping the ones that aren't any good. I have no problem with that. I think Mr. Trombley's comments about excess equipment and whatnot is well pointed. And something I know Chad and I were working on a change to the donation policy as it is. That may be something we go back and take another look at for that idea. We do have board policy that covers the the removal of obsolete equipment. So we certainly have the ability to get rid of excess stuff that we don't need. Most of it is just superintendent approval that it is obsolete and can be discarded. So there's some things to work out here. And I think you're right. We'll just accept this at now. But I know the policy committee has seen that donation one at some point. So we may need to just take another look and see if there's some tweaks we can't do to it. But trying to make some changes to that too. We moved up the, our purchasing limits. I was looking at moving up the donation limits too, so that there's less donations that come to the board, leaving us a little more leeway to make those decisions on whether we really want to accept something or not. So trying to make clear some room for you guys as well. Oh.
What a wink. Okay.
I think I'd recognize those, so.
I hope so.
All right, all those in favor, signify by aye. Nays? Passes 7-0. Thank you to Beth and Ray Segler for that donation. Much appreciated. All right, that takes us to item F on the agenda, which is the practice facility change order.
Yep. I apologize for not updating that template properly. It was not the high school STEAM center. I got confused between that and the indoor practice facility. That being said, all the information on the template was accurate for the practice facility. We are looking at some large change orders here that I'm asking you to approve tonight. Basically what has happened is after the initial planning and drawing, the plans have been submitted to the regulatory bodies for their oversight and review. They've come back with changes, which is pretty standard. The biggest changes came from the Drain Commission as well as the Fire Marshal. We did have some small changes from the Health Department as well. But for the most part, the changes to the Drain Commission, from the Drain Commission, were in order to change the flow of water on the site. It was originally drawn to collect water off on the east side of the property, but the Drain Commission didn't like the way that plan was laid out, and they have ultimate authority on that. They have asked that the water be shed off to the west side of the property to that wooded fence line that you see on the far end of the property. That is an actual drain, part of the Drain Commission's system of drains. They are asking that all the water sheet that way and everything go that way, so including the catch basin. So there was additional piping to move the water that way, and the big expense comes from raising the building, the pad itself up by 6 inches in order to get the water to flow off of that direction. Otherwise, what you would have had is the water sheeting towards the south, and the floor of the building as you opened a door on the north would have been the exact same height as the ground outside, which would have been a problem in a high water situation. You would have had water coming into the building. So they did review that. They did ask that the pad be raised up 6 inches. That's probably the biggest. That's probably 1,800 yards of material to bring that pad up for a building of that size. So that as that comes up, so that's part of the expense. Another big portion of the expense in the original, there's 2 change orders here. There's one that's an add and one that's a deduct. So the second part is from the fire marshal. They did ask for us to include fire access roads, both from Brighton Road and then from the existing parking lot, which will be expanded, but to run along the north side of the building. Those were to be, I think the original drawing was for 150 feet off of Brighton Road, and then at least 300 feet off of that existing parking lot to include a turnaround that would accept fire engines. So that was another 70 foot of that. So, and to make roads hefty enough to handle the equipment that may be used in that situation, it does include a lot of underground base, and then also they wanted it asphalted at the time. So those were the big changes. Now, subsequent to that, there were further negotiations, and the fire marshal did back off on some of that. He's basically down to 150 foot on both. That would eliminate the turnaround or the need for a turnaround. He's also sort of backed off on the asphalting, but it would still require all the basing and even for a gravel road. So those were the large changes on that part. The health department change was in order to accommodate those access lanes, you had to replan and move the septic system that was going to be there. So that got moved. I'm trying to think what else was there. Overall, these were, I mean, for the most part, these are just regulatory bodies putting their stamp on the drawings before they can get through. So there are changes that are necessary. They do net out, like I said, the first one totaled $310,818. The second one was a net deduct of $31,000. That brings the net total to $278,974. So we are asking you to approve that tonight so that the project can move along. Just so you know that the funding will come out of our general contingencies that do sit at about 7.2 million right now. So it's not really an issue of being able to afford it. These dollars were just too large for the facilities committee to approve on their own, and it was best that we bring it to the board for full approval. Yes.
Any way to tie this to, I don't have the full footprint, but this is, there's no way to tie to the Maltby parking lot issues.
Correct. And I'll pass this down. I don't know. I didn't include it because it's a little bit, it's just a drawing and it's not, but you can see the lanes on the side and the top, and it's all south of the building. So it's not really close enough to tie, but I just thought I'd send that around anyway. I didn't include it.
With that said, we are working to have a traffic study done at Maltby as well as Spencer. We have a meeting on Wednesday, and so we are looking at that options, or some of those options.
Another thing, Michael, too, that you haven't mentioned is there's probably another deduct coming, which would be the sales tax on the building itself, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of
I'd say probably 200,000.
somewhere in that neighborhood. So that should be an additional deduct if we can. Here's we'll be able to.
At least the building
Paperwork's
piece of it,
what's
that it's,
But in reality, when the parking area was, in front of the building was expanded in order to make the grades flow for the water, especially by adding what the fire marshal had asked us to add, roads, not just simply bringing in gravel. I mean, if you got the elevation of a building, then you got to add roads, the road has to come up, right? Which means the building has to come up, which at the time of the original design, the fire marshal hadn't said anything about those roads. So that's, the roads are what's dictating that extra 6 inches of. The roads were never there to start with, Alicia. This is what the fire marshal had asked for in order to compliant with what he wanted to see. So originally he wanted a ring road around it. We were able to get it to where there was 2 entrances, one from Brayton and one from Howard. So that prevented the price of the ring road. But what happened is that road has to be built up. So if you got your elevation that was set here with your building, your road comes up 6 inches, you can't have your building below your road. So when the fire marshal said he wanted those roads, we had to design the building up so it wasn't.
I think the drain commission also simultaneously wanted to shed the water to the west, and they needed to bring the footprint up anyway, just so the water hit it and move that direction too.
But that was the difference from the original design to this design now.
That is true.
Process. No, because they will adjust the elevation to what's there now. So those roads will be now, right? Because theoretically, something wouldn't happen until even next summer. By that time, the roads will be there and the elevations will be adjusted. But nothing's going to happen there because we can't get a curb cut on Brighton Road, okay? Got gates there, which are crash gates for the fire truck. Not gonna allow us to have a curb cut at Brighton Road to send traffic out or bring traffic in. Strictly a crash gate, and that's what, you'll see there's another adder in there for.
The other question I had was, I know that we're two change orders, one's in adding up the, and on the admin component, there is no, in addition to the actual subcontractor's cost, there is no overhead profit.
That's correct.
I guess what's 10%, that's.
Yeah.
But in the deduct, the 31,000, there's no corresponding deduct.
Yeah. I've already spoken to the construction manager. He's working on obtaining that additional credit because I did see that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all counts at the end of the day.
Yeah, he's working on that currently because I saw the same thing. I told him we need to get that overhead and profit back on that deduct as well. So correct. But I just figured we'd take it at another time, and I didn't have it at the time of writing it up. Yep. Correct. Yeah, that was another screw up on my part. I carried over a past template, and that was from like 2 meetings ago. So the actual thing I'm asking for is to approve the change orders as presented.
I mean, I think we should say to the motion made to approve, maybe, post change orders.
As presented.
Reconciliation, rest. The motion will be to approve post change orders, for the reconciliation as discussed. Two change orders. Do we have a motion?
Or
Any discussion? Further discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Nays, that passes 7-0. Close our for action,
Yeah.
for future action, item A, Title 3, Part A, recruit students. Mr. Richard.
I'll take it. This is something we do annually to the board. Title $3 that come in for English as a second language. These dollars are very small. Our allocation is less than $2,000, and the strings attached to those federal dollars are just not worth taking the money. We actually can do a better program by relinquishing the funds. So it makes the most sense for us to come to the board and ask you to relinquish these funds and not take them at this time. We do this on an annual basis. It doesn't make sense for the amount of work that's in the grant. We can do a better job by just not taking it. Anytime you talk federal dollars, there will be strings attached, yes. I will, depending on what we're referring to, several of the COVID related, the strings are much less than in a normal situation. So it would be specific, case specific. So.
question about this. So one of the things that I'm not clear on, so I know that the high school and Scranton work on a semester basis, but the elementary schools are not on a semester, they're on a trimester, right? That, I mean, does schools of choice, is that problematic when we're doing this on a semester basis, but accepting kids on in a trimester? Okay, thank you.
Not yet. We'll have the fall count completed. We'll know exactly where we are at in all of those spots shortly. But if I were to look at that, there were grades that we did not open up. 2 through 4 were tight going in, which is why we had limited spaces. And in 12th grade, accepting 12th graders for the last semester is not a practice used in many districts. So those would be spots where I would anticipate any, if any, spots. We could share that with you once the count is in.
Right, this is just for future action, just reminding you this is something we do on an annual basis. We do have to pass a summer tax resolution by December 31st of this year in order for us to actually levy summer taxes next summer. This is just part of the law. They do require it to be done and distributed to the municipalities. This is what I'm bringing to you now for future action. Hope to get that approved in November. I will have a resolution ready for you at that time. Any questions?
That closes the future action portion of our agenda. That moves us now to the public viewing for non-action items. So I think we have all the cards that everyone filled out. If you are here and have not yet filled out a card and wish to address the board, please do so. And the box there next to Mr. Hilder. Just briefly, what we will give you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Dr. Krebs is keeping time, and she will give you a yellow card warning when there are 30 seconds left. If you're allotted time, the red card means your 3 minutes have expired. So, with that, I will start with Anna Pell.
Hello, my name is Anna Pinella. I'm a parent in the district. I live in Eagle Way, Brighton. Just a comment as an observer regarding the Neola issue. I thought it was sort of interesting that that got brought up, since that got bumped from agenda to agenda when people had questions regarding those policies, and the people who were to answer them weren't at the meetings. They weren't attending. I am here concerned about quarantines. I think this needs to stop. We're discriminating against kids that are not vaccinated. Unvaccinated kids aren't able to stay in school, yet vaccinated children are able to stay in school, even though vaccinated children are getting sick and spreading COVID. So I'm not sure why we're choosing to discriminate here in Brighton. I looked up the duty of a school board member under the Michigan Association of School Board, and the number 1 priority of the school board is to educate students. That to me seems like it's a tough thing to do when we have thousands of quarantines. I happen to be I was looking on the Parent Connect today. My son is taking AP World History, and I looked at his grade and I said, "Why in the world are you getting a C in AP World History? What are you doing?" And he said, "I don't know, Mom." He said, "I'm not sure. my teacher actually told us the other day that 25% of the grades this year, or the grades this year are 25% lower than the grades last year. I mean, maybe not being in school is impacting grades. On May 5th, this is a really important issue. May 5th, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued a notice to all local health departments. Yet our local health director, Juan Marquez, who covers this, did not share this information, and neither did Diane McCormick. The directive said that all state-ordered COVID protocols expired on May 5th of 2021. After that point, the local health department was to issue orders. We have received 0 orders from the Livingston County Health Department, but yet somehow we're still quarantining children, which falls under their directive. This entirely denies due process for any children involved in a quarantine, including mine. I just would highly recommend that Brighton area schools get out of the policy of issuing quarantines that aren't even supported by our local health department, because they have not issued not a single order. Not only did they not issue one after May 5th, they never have through this entire pandemic. So I think that we should stop quarantining kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it John Curran? Youngman. Apologize. And actually, just to give a heads up, Janine Iyer will be next.
Okay, I'm Ken Yonkman. I'm from Green Oak Township, and I'm here tonight to talk about education also, emphasizing education instead of indoctrination. I'm sure all of you guys are keenly aware that parents are getting upset with school boards. I think at the last board meeting, I heard there was a bit of a stir up here. And across the nation, parents are getting upset because schools are no longer educating, they're indoctrinating. They're teaching values that parents don't agree with. They are teaching things like social and emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory. Those are coming into our schools, and they're disparaging our Constitution, our nation, and our heritage. And I just want to encourage all of you to be diligent in weeding those things out of our public schools. Get back to educating our students and stop indoctrinating them. And then we won't have parents that are upset. I was at a meeting this week listening to an author speak, and he was speaking on some things that are going on in our nation right now. And he suggested that the only solution to saving our nation is to shut down the public schools. And you know what? The room broke out into applause every time he said that. So it's not going to be long before, instead of defund the police, it's going to be defund the public schools if we don't get things right here. So be diligent and get things right.
Thank you. After Ms. Iyer will be David Deal. Thank you.
Janine Iyer, Genoa Township. First of all, thank you to board members and Superintendent Outlaw for your service to the community.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Thank you for your service to the community. The Livingston County Health Department has stated there is no order to quarantine students. Similarly, I understand Superintendent Outlaw has stated that Brighton area schools has established no quarantine policy, yet parents are being called by Livingston County Health Department employees telling parents their child needs to quarantine, even though the health department director says there is no quarantine order. This is very confusing to parents. That being the case, I will call on this board to pass a resolution to recognize the fact that the Livingston County Health Department has not issued a quarantine order and give parents the discretion to keep their kids home if they're sick or let them go to school if they're not. Brighton area schools is not authorized to issue or enforce a quarantine order, especially one that doesn't exist from the health department. So I would urge the board to clarify that in a written resolution. This whole issue of taking kids out of school for 10 days at a time is detrimental to the students' mental, emotional, social well-being, and it is putting them behind academically. The quarantining of healthy students is depriving students of a quality education, and it is this board's job to see to it that students receive a quality education. That cannot be accomplished when they are being excluded from school 10 days in a row, time and again. As I reported before, there has not been one COVID death in Livingston County in individuals ages 0 to 19 years. And I understand not even one child has been hospitalized in a Brighton area student. All this exclusion of children from class and extracurricular activities is really abusive and detrimental to children. And so I call on you to fix this. Thank you.
After Mr. Deal will be, you have a comment.
My name is David Deal. I live with my wife and 2 kids in the Brighton area. Thank you for hearing me tonight. Wow, I was coming up, I had something planned, and now it's all changed a little bit. I came up just to say thank you for the mask mandates, but I do want to emphasize what the people before me have said. We've got a lot of work to do here with regard to pushing back against the tyrannical racist agendas that we all know about so well, the three-letter acronyms and woke, white privilege, whatever. All the stuff that we get in trouble for talking at school board meetings there's got to be a reason we're getting in trouble for talking about it, because it should be squashed. So I agree with what they said completely. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I also want to talk about, we have a lot of work to do also in the quarantine. Mr. Conley brought something up last meeting I was at a couple weeks ago, but looking for alternative ways to do the quarantining. Thank you for looking for other ideas. I agree completely. We need to be in school. Kids need to be there. They need to be muzzle-less, and they need to be in school getting the full experience. My son just finished his JV year in football, and it was a wonderful season. For a short time there, I felt like I was living in the America that I had known for 55 years. Thank you for doing what you're doing to get us back to where we should have been all along. We can be now. Open up your eyes. It's obvious. We don't need all this extra control that's happening, okay? So I want to say thank you to Mr. Trombley, Mr. Conley, Mr. Stahl, Mr. Myers. I think it's obvious which 3 voted to muzzle our kids. So thank you to you for being strong. We need to keep the battle, keep the fight going, and we'll get there. Thank you very much.
After Ms. Helmanen will be Elizabeth Johnson.
Hi, I'm Eva Helmanen. 630 Brighton Lake Road. I've been to many board meetings recently. First of all, I'd like to state for the record, the last board meeting I was at where there was mayhem broke out, I really truly do believe that our local media distorted that thing beyond anything that I recognize as a member here. When somebody comes up to the mic and goes out of control and goes after someone, you become defensive. So in all fairness to the board member that was involved and was somewhat attacked, if there's any legal action taken against you, and by the way, she also said that these board members bring in their whole posse of friends. I don't know anyone on this board personally. I've never discussed anything with anyone on this board personally. So let's lay that to rest. For someone to come in like she did, that was out of control. That wasn't what I really came to talk about. But anyway, I had an opportunity while we were off, not having a board meeting a couple weeks ago, to go to a couple other seminars and listen to other speakers. And something was brought to my attention regards to Planned Parenthood. And so I have subsequently filed a FOIA with the Brighton area schools, and thank you, Mr. Scaling, for getting back to me on that. And he's going to be getting me the information I've asked to, but I just want to put it before the board and the public, what I've requested, and any curriculum related to Planned Parenthood, any health education relating to the funding of any kind from Planned Parenthood to support our curriculum, any related emails that have a connection to Planned Parenthood. I went to this discussion and I found out a lot of things about Planned Parenthood that I had no idea. I'm on my 8th child in Brighton schools, and I hope and pray that Brighton Schools has not participated in what's going on in a lot of schools in our country. And I'm just going to say a couple little things that I heard at this seminar. Planned Parenthood does not have the best interest of our children at heart. They have an agenda. Their agenda is to have every client of theirs have 3 abortions by the time they're 25. They offer these children birth control that is only 50% effective. They want these children to have abortions. They are now handing out pills for abortions. Kids are dying because they're becoming septic, hemorrhaging. We need to educate moral values as our basis in our health curriculum and the teaching of our students. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I would like to have further discussion. Again, I'll await the FOIA, and I'm just hoping that the results are what I would love to hear. And as far as the marijuana, when that got brought up, thank you. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Johnson. I live in the city of Brighton, and I wanted to I didn't plan to talk tonight, but I wanted to just urge you, as Dr. Outlaw had proposed, to formulate a resolution around this marijuana in the city of Brighton. I believe a few meetings ago, I was the one that was up here speaking about the meeting. And I did attend the meeting, and I have a very good view of the recovery meeting. My husband is in recovery, which means our whole entire family is in recovery. And so we are very open about these things. And I also work for a recovery nonprofit. So this dispensary is just the beginning. And so I also have another position as on the PTO for one of our schools. And I am currently working with, because of interest from our parents, I know a lot of teachers and administrators went to the Tall Cop Says Stop. It was offered as a professional development, and it's about, they call them gas station drugs. And he is very, the guy that came and spoke is very interesting because he comes to our community. He came to our community and went to our gas stations and went to our stores, and what he was able to come out with that our children can get is unbelievable. I have had so many requests from parents to know about drugs, that we don't know about these things. And if you're not in the recovery community, if you don't know these things, if you're not looking and searching for these things, then you don't know. So while I'm over here working for recovery with my family and working for recovery in my job, I have parents knocking down my door saying they would like to have more information about drugs and how to keep them out of the hands of their children. So it is imperative that this board, it is your responsibility to draft a motion that says that you are not in support of drugs in our city. Thank you.
Hello, Brighton Area School Board members. Please stop quarantining our healthy kids. Relationships are difficult to maintain. Online learning only deliver academic content. The physical, social, and emotional needs of learning go undetected when there is no visual contact between the teacher and the student. Academic content is easy to find anywhere on the internet, but best part of the school is the teacher's relationships with the students that is missing in online courses. Motivation needs monitoring, successful online education needs structured parental oversight in home or daily interaction with a teacher or extremely self-motivated student. Very often, none of these scenarios exist, and this is the reason online courses have such a high dropout rate. Many online courses have no live instruction from a teacher. No experience is no different than students self-teaching by reading text from a screen or a textbook after reading an assignment, screen text, or book pages. Out of short answers, essays, discussions, comments, reviews, quizzes, and lab reports to prove they're engaged in this course. There are no oral responses because there is no synopsis interaction. The students have questions. A teacher email response often comes far too late by the time the kids have often figured out the answers or no longer care about it. Online learning only tickles two senses. Experimental learning encompasses sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste, as well as talking, feeling, which is embedded learning and long-term memory portion of the brain. Concepts live in the person visual board. Then the kids will get up, actively engage physically. Children need to move. Exercise time spent sitting is not good. Online kids cannot handwrite. Many kids cannot write anymore because of their ever increasing reliance on keyboards, handicaps children who use a computer all through their school years, but must write high stakes exams with paper, pencil, slowing down their tremendous many professions. Post-secondary institutions will not allow computers in the rooms for exams or even lectures. That means kids who never handwrite will be forced to do so for timed exams or lose their marks because of their physical disability. Parents are shut out of the child's education. Math characteristics example, unless one uses a math keyboard, it takes so many more keystrokes, right? Exponents, fractions, and other characteristics. It also is harder to do group and collaborative work by computer than meeting in person to discuss the project and organizing the workload. Poorly organized courses. Please stop sending home healthy kids to quarantine. Thank you.
After Ms. Kopolowski will be Christina Kafkakis.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time to hear our concerns and comments. My name is Susan Topoleski from Green Oak Township. First, I want to thank Dr. Outlaw for proposing some type of resolution that favors protecting our children from access to marijuana dispensaries. I think it's important to send a clear message to Brighton City Council that our community doesn't want this and that our kids aren't for sale. No amount of marijuana legalization makes it okay for it to be, freely accessible to our children. Secondly, I learned some new things tonight that I didn't know prior to coming here. So I thank some of the speakers tonight who gave us further clarification on the health department's role and what authority they have, because that was the main point I wanted to bring up tonight. The recent letter from Dr. Outlaw highlighted the health department's role in the current quarantine measures that are in place within Brighton area schools. So a question I had for all of you, Dr. Outlaw and this board, is by what authority does the Livingston County Health Department dictate to you these quarantine orders? And I think we got our answer tonight. They don't. They really don't have any authority if they do not have an actual order in place. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services downgraded COVID to the status of epidemic, and my understanding is that they have no legally binding authority over our families and students within this county. We have two clear examples that have been recent. The Sheboygan lawsuit case that was recently settled brought to light that the health department had to settle, well, they didn't have to, but they chose to settle with the two boys who brought the lawsuit against them because they knew that the judge was going to rule in favor of the boys. So they settled instead of letting this go to a decision by the judge. They settled because they had infringed on the rights of these boys' access to education. And the judge's remarks were interesting because that judge said, had they been able to rule, this is what they would have said.
The health department has no authority to hand down these quarantine orders. Plain and simple, really simple. Also, we saw recently the St. Clair Health Department also rescinded their quarantine orders for the county. So that begs the question. We have now 2 clear examples of health departments across our state who have said, we don't have this authority. My challenge to you, board, please put forth a resolution to end these quarantines because the health department does not have authority over you or any of you. Thank you for your time.
My name is Christina Kafkakis. I live in Brighton Township, and I have 4 children in the district. I did not prepare anything tonight to speak, but I felt the need to look up once again information on paraprofessional salaries in our area. And this time I decided to look outside of our local community and look at neighboring districts. And what I found was that paraprofessionals in other districts make at least $4 per hour more at the starting salary or the starting hourly wage than we offer our starting parapros. On average, they make $30,000 a year, but that of course depends on the number of hours worked because most of them are hourly positions. I want to address a couple things that I have seen as a parent over the years. My oldest is in 8th grade. He's been in school for 9 years. He's on the spectrum. And while he did not have an order on his IEP for a paraprofessional, he was always placed in a class with one. Our previous superintendent, as much as I loved him, told me and my husband that Brighton area schools used to just throw a parapro at every situation, and that's how we handled it. And we're not going to do that anymore. And it's my opinion that that kind of attitude and the treatment of paraprofessionals is why we're struggling to hire people and keep people. I know that at our elementary, I don't have experience with other elementaries, but at our elementary school, I have seen paraprofessionals taken away from students with no notice to the students. Keep in mind, these students that have paraprofessionals are usually kids that have issues with transitions, and they're kids that need help navigating social situations. And when you take a paraprofessional who's their like solid source of help in a day, and you surprise them and say, guess what, you have a new person today. That's really hard on a kid. So I would really like to see an item on a future agenda for addressing staffing, specifically salaries of support professionals in the schools, because contrary to what people believe, paraprofessionals do so much work for our students, and they're right there teaching alongside our teachers, our educators, and they have to do a lot more. Some of them have to be trained in medical procedures, feeding procedures. So I'd like to see something addressed by the board. It's something I brought up for the last, 10 years or so, and I'd like to see something happen before my son graduates in 2026. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Awesome. So I want to start off by thanking Dr. Outlaw. Dr. Outlaw, I don't know if you remember, but we met at Kroger grocery shopping. You carved out about 10 minutes of your time to have a conversation. I'm a fan of yours. You're doing a great job. Continue to kick ass and take names as necessary. So I came here to talk about quarantines and the decision to quarantine kids versus based on vax or unvax status. And so while everybody's been nice enough to cite the laws and casework and everything, I'm going to share some anecdotal information. So I was unfortunate enough to come down with symptomatic COVID that I caught from one of my football players. However, I didn't know I was symptomatic. I thought it was a cold because I'm double vaxxed. And so in a very short period of time, I was able to give COVID to no less than 15 people. And of those 15 people that I know I gave COVID to, 12 of them were vaccinated. The discrimination between vaccinated and unvaccinated status is crap. If you look at emerging data, it's going to tell you what is really happening. But we're looking at data that is months and months old, and we're looking at something that may be considered at this point propaganda. I would encourage all the folks that are here on the board to look for a viral video that has Fauci talking about it's 100% effective, it's 99% effective, 98, 97, 96, drops down to 80s. It's an amazing video, and it's not a deep fake. It's the real deal. I'm also going to talk to you about, anecdotally, about my daughter's experience with COVID. So my daughter Gabby graduated last year, about a 3.4 GPA, all state in 2 different sports, was a great student, and has since matriculated on to Ohio University. So at Ohio University, she's taking a math class, and she began to struggle in that math class, and where she shouldn't be struggling in the math class. And so I had a very honest heart-to-heart with her, talking about, well, why are you struggling? This is stuff that was covered in high school. Well, Dad, the stuff that they're going over that's really giving me a hard time is the stuff that was covered while she was on 14 days of unnecessary quarantine. So let's talk about the impact. The impact isn't something that you're going to see a month later, or a day later, or a week later. This is almost a year after she had experienced her first quarantine, where these topics were covered, where she didn't get the benefit of face-to-face education, where she is now having to drop classes. We need to keep kids face-to-face educated. There were 2 other things that came up that I didn't realize I was going to talk about, but since they came up here and, I've got the podium for at least another 30 seconds till I see the yellow card. Recreational marijuana. Come on, it's legal, but there's dispensaries in Whitmore Lake and there's dispensaries in Ann Arbor. Take the drive. We don't need that down there. The last one is actually kind of important. If I look at that paragraph there on the board there, we will serve with pride, given the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of our children. The following paragraph: treat students, parents, citizens, staff, guests, vendors, and fellow board members inside and outside the boardroom with dignity and respect. The world could use a little bit more grace. That clown show that was on TV from the last board meeting is disgusting, all right? And there always seems to be one particular board member involved with it. That needs to stop. Hold yourself, hold your peers accountable. We're supposed to be I'd say we as in Brighton, but the Brighton Board of Education is supposed to be the pillar that the rest of the Brighton area schools looks up to. And when we're looking like that on TV, that's asinine. And y'all should be embarrassed that either you perpetrated that or you allow that to be perpetrated. Continue to do good work.
Yes. Brandon Mickus. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Brandon Mickus, Green Oak Township. Again, nothing's prepared. I just want to say thank you for everything that you guys do and the opportunity that we all get to come and speak. Dr. Outlaw, thank you for the continuing great work. We really appreciate everything that you guys do for our kids. My daughter is in kindergarten. She absolutely loves school. She loves the bus. She loves the entire aspect, the friends, I could go on. She comes home, she's just smiling. Well, earlier this week, I could go on as far as I had to drive here and I do this. It's all kind of irrelevant. We're in a spot where I'm working like an hour away. My wife's out of town. And I get a call saying that my daughter, she's like, why haven't you picked your daughter up? It was her teacher, Miss Sins. Amazing teacher. If any of you guys have the opportunity to have your son or daughter attend her class, kindergarten teacher Hawkins, she is phenomenal. And she's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, what's up? She's like, are you on your way to get your kid? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, the bus isn't going anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, your school bus route was canceled. Bus number 10. So here I am, right? Thank God I left work early because I knew I had to get my son, right? But now I didn't even know I was 20 minutes late from picking my daughter from school. All right, I'm in construction. I use a phone, right, here and there, but it's not to check emails, right? I got no phone call. I got nothing. Like I said, if I didn't have so much faith in my daughter's teacher, I would be a little bit more livid right now. It was an inconvenience, but it could have been worse. We have to do better there, first and foremost. But I want to raise the question as to why buses are just getting dropped midday. Couldn't have waited until the next day to maybe, plan. It is what it is. It's an inconvenience. It's in the past. It's already done. But I believe that we can do better and maybe develop a plan that works for everybody. They said November 3rd, as far as when we get the chance to revisit that. I was kind of venting to my cousin. She's like, oh yeah, that happened to us last year. And then they started this rotation and, so it didn't inconvenience the same people the entire school year. That's crazy that that's a problem to be honest, getting our kids to school. And I'm not saying that's your guys' fault, but I'm saying it's kind of your guys' responsibility to maybe help contribute to an answer and a solution, right? So we can all do better there. The second is quarantines. Y'all have done an amazing job talking about the facts, the statistics. I already went over the, the statistics last time. 6,000 students, 305 cases, 9,000 quarantines, and only five. And now we know that it's in y'all's power to change this. It's not the department or the board or the health department. So I'm here as a parent, and I'm asking y'all to put forth some kind of motion or resolution to end this. My daughter's got quarantined again. She's gonna miss her today. We got a call today. So now both my son and my daughter are quarantined. She's missing her party. We can do better. Okay, we know the dance. Thank you.
There's no one else here for the card. All right. That will close the call to the public continuation portion for the non-action items and moves us into the next section of our agenda for committee reports, Board of Education bulletins.
I would like to add something to this. I had the privilege today of meeting with the Michigan Association of School Board is setting up meetings with Congress people with each of the districts. So I met with Representative Alyssa Slotkin today with MASB on a call. And she was just talking about asking questions of what can be done federally for the schools. And I just want to share a couple of the things that she shared with us at the meeting today. First of all, we know that there's a lot of discussions about the infrastructure bill. So the one thing that's coming forward is that there's $40 billion for broadband. But what's important to us is that there's going to be some big money, $100 million coming to Michigan for broadband. Certainly, we know that that's important for everybody. So that is something that's coming. She also talked about universal pre-K is on the agenda, thinking about that. So we can start thinking about what that means. And I know from my job, what I'm looking at is we're looking at certification. I know the state is currently looking at certification for early childhood. So this is going to be something that's on the horizon that we're going to be thinking about. There's a lot of debate about childcare availability, affordability, and staffing. So these are things that are, again, coming on down the line. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that for the teachers that would like it, they are approved for booster shots. So if teachers want to get booster vaccines, they are eligible for that. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Krebs.
I'd like to make a motion tonight that Brighton area schools eliminates the quarantine process.
I'll support that motion.
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Well, first of all, that's not even on the agenda.
Understand, but I had the floor. You gave me the floor and I made a motion and it's been supported.
Okay. So there's a motion to eliminate the quarantine. All right.
For Brighton area schools tonight,
By Mr. Trombley, supported
immediately.
by Mr. Conlon. Okay, any discussion?
I think it's a little late in the meeting for a motion of that magnitude, especially when it's not even on the agenda so that anybody can prepare for the discussion.
I have the floor. I made the motion. It's been seconded.
I know, and we're having discussion about it.
Yep,
Yeah.
got it.
Mr. Conley.
Yeah. The purpose in it, it's urgent. It needs to be done. And I think that the citizens have been heard clearly. And as the elected body, our job, we may have different feelings ourselves, but really we're looking out for our community and what they feel. And in this position, in this time, in this day and age, it's time to call it. And when you know that you could be harming an individual and you continue to do it, it's a real bad idea. And that was said by some great people in our world. not me, but it's like the crime itself or the issue itself is really a bad thing. But if you continue to do it, it's worse than the initial. So if we continue of something that's not working and we don't stand up for the rights of our parents and their students, we're a failure. And personally, I don't fail intentionally. We make mistakes, but don't walk into a situation to fail. And this is a day we need to call it. And we'll see how everybody feels about it. And that's the job as an elected body to find out.
Do you actually have a quarantine policy that this board approved? No. So how does the motion? It's a motion to to eliminate the quarantine policy is what I understand.
In other words, so there will be no more quarantine moving forward after tonight.
I have a question for the board, was it for Dr. Outlaw? How do you go through this? Where does this process come from and how do you administer it? I mean, we don't have a policy that says we have quarantine, so what is the procedure that you're following?
Well, I'll share a little bit about the procedure with, in that last newsletter. I had a conversation today about this with a couple folks, and we're learning a lot about this. Obviously, as a board, we've had quite a bit of conversation about quarantines. This is a conversation across the state about legality. Where does the legal, where does the standing come from? Is it public code? What are the different standards? What's required of the health department? Up until very recently, we've had a position that quarantines are a function of the health department, that it was under their authority. And I think that is what we have lived under for 19 and a half months of the pandemic. And so that is where we've been at. Obviously, we've had some conversations as a board on this topic. But where we're at right now is, as I understand it, and I'm going to just paraphrase it from the meetings I'm at, is that the health department is strongly recommending that as of today, that we implement quarantines, and then it's our responsibility to exclude students based on that recommendation. So that is where we're at as of today, as we're learning more and more about the standing of this. So that is where we're at today. I know that that's not super clear, and I think that we're trying to discover where we're at as a district. And I think that things have changed over the last couple of weeks, and we're still continuing with that conversation. So I know I'm kind of dancing on it a little bit, but we're learning right now at the same time as the health department. So what other questions can I answer?
So we don't have a policy with the district to quarantine, but we're required to cooperate with the health department based on what they are supposed to be doing as far as quarantine.
So yes, that would be the position where we're coming into this meeting, is that we are quarantining students based on the recommendation of the health department, excluding students from school based on their recommendation.
So the health department never told us to quarantine. They're only making a recommendation for us to quarantine.
Oh, it's a recent shift. Obviously we need to go through, I don't know exactly what the language was that they used. I think it was much stronger when it was really run by the state up until, I think somebody talked about it tonight, in May is when it started to shift, and a lot of the rules changed and became more local. But the health department, we do this based on we thought it was an order, but it's appearing over the last week or so that it may be more of a recommendation than an order. So again, we're learning.
So, anybody else has a turn? Well, you've already gone, so I would like to.
I have another statement in on top of, but go ahead.
That's fine.
Thank you.
So let me just, I will say, personally, I think the quarantining of healthy students is absolutely wrong. I believe that last year, that's correlation between the desired result and the impact that it has on students and the disruption of the everyday life and the impact of education, okay? I say that at the very beginning. However, I've got two problems with this motion. One is procedural and one is substantive, okay? The procedural motion is, this isn't something that came up tonight. I mean, we've been talking about the quarantine policy and whether the health department has authority or doesn't have authority for weeks, okay? And we are going to be addressing an issue of this magnitude and potential legal consequences. It needs to come through the proper channel, in my opinion. It needs to go to the administration, needs to put it on the agenda. There needs to be, the administration comes forward with a recommendation on all these issues. Even when we had the mask issue, the administration's position was we shouldn't have a mask mandate. And we went through the process and we agreed, the majority of us agreed that there would not be a mask mandate. And we've lived under that decision since then. So now we fast forward to tonight. I think it's inappropriate to bring this up in this fashion procedurally. So I'm opposed to it on a procedural basis. Substantively, I'm also opposed to it because the problem is that people are conflating the notion of a quarantine versus an exclusion of students from school under the Michigan School Code. Okay, and let me explain. Somebody brought up the Sheboygan case, and I'm very familiar with the Sheboygan case. And in the Sheboygan case, and what's happened in some other cases, is there's litigation against the health departments because they didn't have the proper orders in effect in order to require people to quarantine. What quarantining means is that you're obligated to stay in your house. You can't go and run around Target or Meijer or anyone else. So when the health department issues a quarantine, if it's valid or not, whether people can leave their house and run around Target or any other stores, that's between the health department and that individual. We have no say in that. So we aren't, when we get the information from the health department with regard to the health or lack thereof of any student, we aren't quarantining anyone because we're not telling those people, you need to go home and you need to stay home and you can't leave, because we have no authority to do that. When the people leave our buildings, they can do whatever they want. And if they're violating, an edict from the health department, that's between them and the health department, okay? But as it relates to our obligation, we're governed by, there are health requirements in the school code. The Sheboygan case is an example. That was never even an issue in the Sheboygan case because the issue in the Sheboygan case had nothing to do with whether the school district was properly enforcing their health protocols within their buildings and requiring an alternative. And that was never an issue in Sheboygan because the Sheboygan case dealt with the health department requiring people to basically under house arrest when they didn't have the legal authority to do so. I totally agree with that. And they didn't have the authority to keep people under house arrest. But we're not keeping anybody under house arrest. We're saying that there is a directive that comes to us, or a recommendation, when there's an identification of a potential health issue from the health department, we have to take it and we have to apply the requirements that we are under the school code. As I said from the beginning, I think the quarantining policies that the health departments have implemented are ridiculous. But you know what? I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner. And there isn't anyone else up here sitting here that's the judge, jury, and the executioner. If people think that what the health department is doing is illegal, then sue the health department. That's not for, because we don't stand in the shoes of the health department. But we do have a legal obligation to operate under the parameters that we have for
They recommend
the
masks,
school
we're
code.
not doing that.
So that's where I stand. I completely disagree. If I was the health director, I might be looking at it differently, but I'm not. We're a school board. We take direction from the legal counsel that we get. And ma'am, okay, this is our turn. So for all those reasons, I am not going to support the motion.
The only reason why I said quarantine Rogers, because that's the way we refer to it.
And I just want to clarify what quarantine really means.
Okay. Then maybe, should we change our,
No, that was the communication we sent out before is we don't quarantine. We don't have any legal authority to quarantine people, students, or even adults for that matter, our staff. And therefore, we don't have a quarantine policy.
so are our kids, so the kids that are sent home, they're allowed to come back the next day then, if they said they've been quarantined?
No, whatever protocols the health department sets with respect to whether they think they should be quarantined, that's what, outside of our school buildings and our school functions, we have no control over them.
But again, those are only recommendations, right?
Whether it's a recommendation or an order, it doesn't.
I mean, there's a difference between a recommendation and an
For
order.
purposes of the enforcement of a quarantine requiring somebody to stay home. Because if there is a true quarantine order, then the people that are ordered to quarantine, they have a legal right to go to court and say, I shouldn't be quarantined. That's between them and the health department. We have no legal involvement in that, which is why we don't have a policy.
So then, because we use the word quarantine when we tell the kids they need to stay home because they're being quarantined.
Well, we get communication from the health department that says this student.
But we
is still
send that out.
quarantined. Right, I mean,
The teachers call and say, hey, or the secretaries call and say, hey, your kid's under quarantine.
But that's.
Or they send
that's-
letters.
Maybe that's a way that, in terms of clarifying the communication.
That is the quarantine, that has been the word that has been used all the way up until, like I said, we're discovering a lot of things in the last couple of weeks. And I'm not giving you very clear things because I don't have the answers on some of these things. These are good questions. The health department, I believe it was last week, switched the words quarantine to exclusion. Okay. I'm just telling you that there are changes that are going on. We are learning things. There's a lot of conversations that are going on, and I apologize to not be able to answer as concretely as I would like to, but we're just discovering where we're at right now.
I'd like to have a representative from the health department. I don't know if you can get that, come to one of those meetings or talk to us in closed session, whatever the case has to be. I'd also like to have a lawyer there, because we've had some discussions to that level, and we were given some pretty good advice, in my opinion, based on the knowledge at the time. If it's changed, I want to hear it from them. I'm not personally ready to take the liability the other way. I don't like the fact that healthy kids are getting quarantined either, but I also don't want the liability on the school that I volunteered almost 8 years of my life on now to protect and keep whole, to end up in a lawsuit because we didn't do that in the other direction. It goes both ways. And I don't feel that we have the authority yet or the direction to make a decision on this one motion tonight, but perhaps by the next meeting we could. But I agree with our president. These orders are coming by the mail and letter to the homes, I understand.
Oh, they're not?
Well, that's what we're told. At least that we figured that before, perhaps things have changed. And that information is then given to the school, and the school has to act upon it. I understand that to be the way that we've been rolling with this. So I'd like some clarification, both legally and perhaps medically, if you will, from the health department that can give us the answers we need to make a decision on this. And then let's put it on the agenda and vote.
Any further discussion? Mr. Fowler?
Thank you.
Ken, I appreciate your position, but as you're aware, I'm sure, the board never voted to have this policy in the first place. Okay. I know that. So the policy just appeared. Now, under the law, we're responsible. The board members are responsible, just so you know. Now, I've been told that firsthand. So now what I'm going to tell you is, in most recent information that's come to me on a day-by-day basis now from cases across this state, they're finding in favor of the citizens and their families. I haven't seen one that they didn't. Now, those circuit court actions that handle other counties in the state of Michigan are not for naught or not for moot point here. They set an example and a standard the judges are upholding. So who are we to sit here and say we know better than a circuit court judge that has studied the law and studied the books? And you're willing to sit here and override that law that's been determined by circuit court judges? One after another, they're falling. So I support Bill's motion because of that. And Bill knows that we all care about these kids. There's anybody here who doesn't care about the kids. But in that, I'm going to read one of them. Okay. This court finds the plaintiffs, which were the minors, established that they are entitled to a preliminary injunctive relief on this issue, meaning stop. The liberty interest impact is substantial. Second, they have shown that the harm they would suffer absent a preliminary injunction outweighs the harm it would cause. The plaintiff's harm is substantial: infringement on their liberty and being confined to their home. Now, we don't order the quarantine, but for some reason our letterhead says we do. And for some reason the health department's letterhead said they do. I just don't get it yet. I'm a mechanic, technician, a father. I'm a grandpa, which I'm pretty excited about. So, holding on to my 6-month-old baby the other day, I call her mine now because I'm going to just move right in on this. And I mean, we have a huge responsibility here. And we all raised our families, and we know how important our children are to us. So I think it's clear from a circuit court opinion where we're going with this. Any more delay is potentially risking more children. And the other thing I've been thinking about, and I've spent a lot of hours on this, you guys, I've been thinking about is when in history have we ever put children in front of adults to save adults? Never before, ever. We protect our children at all costs. So, because of that, I urge this board to make a stand, make a decision that benefits the children immediately. I think the chance is higher, Ken. I understand your position. I think the chance is higher that we're going to have something else happen that could be detrimental to the health of a student versus this other. And my position is clear. My conscience is clear. I've done everything I can do, and I did it a long time ago. This didn't start tonight. And I'm glad Bill put the motion on the table. That's what we're here to do as an elected body. I would just urge this board to set a precedent. In fact, we don't even need to vote. If we give the superintendent the indication that that's our interest for him to take care of it in the best way he sees fit, and if that's what he sees fit, let him do it with our support. I mean, there's other ways to do this because I know we want the best thing for these kids. I know we do, but I am absolutely certain from what I've learned and meeting with the parents and meeting with students and seeing I watched graduation last year. I sat there up on the podium, whatever it's called there, the stage, and I looked at the kids slumped down in their chairs compared to years prior. It's there. The effects are absolutely clear to me. We need to put a halt to it as soon as possible and get back to helping our students every single day to help them get better at what they're doing. And that means summer school. That means opportunity in classes. That means new curriculum. That means whatever it takes. And we spend that money that we have for them. Not because we need a new roof. We need the new roof so it doesn't leak on them. But we need stuff going on inside these buildings every day. It's corrective. So that's my thought on this. Like I said, put a lot of time into it. And I think the board should make that decision tonight. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Discussion? The only thing the final comment I would say is, with all due respect, Mr. Conley.
Yes, sir.
Your notion that if we don't support that we are overriding the law is, in my opinion, completely.
Well, you're an attorney, so you would know.
Well, it's contrary to the direction we've got from our own attorney. So,
Well,
with all due respect, I I disagree. All right.
Thank you.
I believe there was a roll call vote that was requested. All right. Ms. Ackermeyer.
Mr.
The motion as it, again, could you just remind us that the way the motion is stated?
Well, I think the motion was to terminate any quarantining of students immediately.
There's one other thing, Roger, it's very important, if I might. Our Constitution, state and federal, we have guarantees of rights. And this is probably the most important thing tonight that we're going to talk about. And you made a comment, which is very important. You said, well, we don't control that, but they control that. I'm going to say that united, we've controlled that together. The proof will show that we did it united because we were all involved. The school was involved. The health department's involved. We'll call it a united front. Well, in that united front, the rights of the student, which are minors, by the way, which we're supposed to protect continuously in our job, not only as a board member, but in the public. We're supposed to protect our kids and other people's kids. You know, for generations, our families have gone to war for them. So tonight is a little bit of a battle because we have to make this decision. So their rights have been violated. They were never informed of their constitutional rights regarding right to go to probate by us or by the health department. I have not seen one document out of the dozens that I've reviewed that told our parents what their rights were. Not a one. Now, how can we be part of that? Okay, and if you move forward and we don't eliminate this, I would strongly recommend, with the highest of urgency, that those documents reflect the rules, regulations, and rights of the parents and the students who are watching out for their minor students, because they have no idea. They're not lawyers, and like you've been a profession in law for, I don't know, anything what you know in law, but as a mechanic, I know how to build an engine, and I know how to do my profession, and I can train it pretty well. So I'm bringing that here tonight as a technician. If we deprive them knowingly of their rights, we are failures. Now,
But therein lies the problem is no one's knowingly depriving anyone. of
we are
access
now.
to the rights.
I'm put us on notice. We are.
I'll put you on notice. There's something called the separation of powers, Mr. Conley.
Yeah.
And the separation of powers is there's an executive branch and a legislative branch and a judicial branch.
Yep.
The health department is part of the executive branch. If an executive branch is doing something that somebody believes is unconstitutional, then the recourse is to go to the judicial branch and should secure a determination. Nobody has the it's anarchy if people start saying, well, I think because I know more than
That's not what I'm
judges and other lawyers that are providing the direction. So that's the problem with the process.
I wouldn't lean towards that. I wouldn't lean towards that at all, Roger. In fact, you're misstating what I said.
I don't think I am. All right, I'm going to call the question. I'm calling the question.
You're not ready to yet.
Ms. Ackerman, roll call, please.
Mr. Conley?
I'm voting for eliminating quarantine. Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
No.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Dr. Krebs?
No.
Mr. Stahl?
No.
Ms. Reed?
No?
Mr. Myers?
No. So that motion fails 2-5. All right, any further board, committee reports, Board of Education bulletins?
I have some. I was working on some things that affect students and youth, and it came down to traffic incidents, and it came down to health type things, and crashes and involving drugs and some not, and talked about teen fatalities. These numbers are staggering. Staggering. There's from the state police, and by the hundreds, in some cases by the thousands. Total crashes in 2019, 314,000. It talks about the fatals, 900. Then it goes down to where the youth are involved, which is, teen fatalities in 19, ages 13 and 19 were 60. And then young drivers involved in crashes, ages 16 to 20, 50,000 accidents in the state of Michigan. Young drivers involved in fatal crashes, 115 youth. Now, back to being a technician. We know where are we spending our time? Young drivers in the fatalities, young drivers involved in fatalities, 124, so 115 and then 124. And bicycle crashes and falls, fatal bicycle crashes, 21. Now, for our youth, regarding this COVID exercise, we have 0 fatalities that I know of in the state of Michigan during the term of COVID. So under my understanding, I don't know everything, and I've said I don't claim to know everything, and I'm not an anarchist. I was just saying what I thought. And as a elected official at the board level, unpaid, volunteer, who's committed more hours than most for many years, starting in 1985, by the way, to help schools, to help students. Snowmobile crashes, fatalities, it goes right on down the line. So what I would like the board to do as we grow into the next season, let's say, look at different things, everything we can do to help students, wherever it's at. Like I said earlier, as we were discussing the motion that didn't pass, where are we going to be the most useful to help our students? Topic by topic, one at a time, whatever they are. And if it's in driver's training, if it's in, I sent my kids, I don't know if you guys have done this, I sent them to a defensive driving class when they were 16. State police holds it, and they do a great job up in Lansing. And I was one of the best things I did. It cost $100. They went up there for an hour. And the reason I bring this up today is it's part of our mission as a board, and I believe we all believe in it. So this information, nobody here maybe knew about it. Maybe everybody knew about it. But the state police have a driving academy. So the kids went up there and they brought their friends with them. And it was $100. It was an hour of classroom and 7 hours on the test track in Lansing. Zinging around the test track, running through cones, standing on the brake pedal with a state police officer sitting beside them. What a great time to meet the law enforcement people that you'll live with for a lifetime on a very good note. Positive role model. And interesting enough, one of those state police officers called me one day when my daughter, Katie, who was a race car driver already, he said, "Your daughter's driving my patrol car." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I met him. Remember with that state police officer? My wife and I were in Lamaze class when he was having one of his babies." That's what the community is about. And that's the strength of this community. And that's why we're all here today. So things like that. So in these numbers, I'll give these to Star and maybe she can, scan them and send them out. I think they're very valid. And there's some here from 19, and then I've got 18, and it's hard to get current to date, but these are close. So I'd like everybody to see those. And in regards to this other thing that we can't talk about anymore, I would like to propose that the superintendent get back to us and see if we can't, and Ken brought it up, is have it on an agenda item, and that way if everybody else has more time to look at it, minimally that we can do that, and I'll leave it with that. So I'd request that the superintendent organize us so it's a board agenda item and possibly for action as well, not future. We can always move it up from future, I guess, but and get it addressed as quickly as possible. And maybe the problem will go away and it'll all take care of it themselves and it'll disappear. We won't have to deal with it. Let's dream about that. Okay. But I don't wait for that typically. And I'd like to, again, get everybody comfortable with it and taking action. Because I know that everybody here, honestly, whether we agree, disagree on projects and topics, I think that people care about these children. That's not a doubt. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor.
Yes, sir.
The policy committee met about a week and a half ago. Our rep from Neola was present. He provided us with a list of maybe about 10 policies with recommended revisions. Our next policy meeting is, I think, November 5th. The hope is that we might be able to get some of those policies on the next for future action on the November 22nd meeting. Is that right?
Yes. At one time, it was suggested that maybe there's like a one-page highlight sheet of the policies is that still in the works?
I think that's the plan, right?
I will continue to include that in the core action packets. yes.
Would it be, could we see it before the packet or, I mean, and again, I think it was just a brief summary of what those policies were about, right?
Yeah, that's a, Mr. Scaling prepared one for the package that was presented in August.
But it was in it was for future, it came in as part of for future action.
It's with those, it's just a summary of what those, those changes are about, and just a small paragraph on each one that talks about them, yes. It's in the first time that presented to the board for future action, yes.
The only thing I would like to address as part of the, at this time is, I know we've had the conversation before about shortages that we have in the various aspects of the district. And I know that, comments have been made tonight. I absolutely agree with the comments and the concerns that have been raised. I mean, it's a problem. We can't be having, because of labor shortages, school bus routes canceled in the middle of the day. And I mean, it creates a real problem. It's a hardship, and it's unacceptable. I know that the administration is trying to pursue the additional hiring. There's been adjustments made with regard to some of the wages that have been offered, at least with respect to, I know the bus drivers. I know there's a comment made, and I raised it before about, our parapros are getting paid $12.23 an hour. I realize that, we're in a difficult spot because of the collective bargaining agreement. But I think there are, I really think that as a district, we also need to look at, these are obviously issues that have become readily apparent because we had a shortage. There may be other, and I would really like to have, the district and the administration kind of take a closer look as well at, are there other parts of our staffing that are vulnerable. I guess my point is, what I don't want to see happen is, we may not have a staffing shortage in a particular area now, but if our wages are not competitive, we may start losing people to other districts if those other districts have been adjusting, compensation. And, we're in a very difficult time as a society overall because of, the shortage of people who are willing to work, the shortage of people who are qualified to fulfill positions that we may have in our district, and the escalating wages across the board. I mean, that's a problem that's not going to go away, clearly, overnight. And I want to make sure that not only are we identifying those areas where there already is a shortage, such as food services and buses, but I think we also really need to keep our eye on those positions that are potentially vulnerable, or we don't necessarily have a shortage now. And that's what led me to the reason I asked Mr. Scaling. We've got 2 or 3 resignations in October. I don't ever remember, since I've been on the board, that we've ever had any resignations in October. I'm not saying that it's tied specifically to that issue, but I thought it might, it may not be coincidental that, and I certainly don't want to see us in a situation where we start losing people because there's competitive opportunities in another district because we didn't keep our eye on the ball to make sure that, we can do what we can to make sure we hang on to these people who are very valuable in order for us to continue forward. So, I mean, that's to me, I think, a really critical component of what we need to focus on, especially in the near term, and not only fill those positions that are vacant, but make sure we're keeping an eye on the people that we haven't lost, but could be vulnerable to do so if we aren't taking care of them.
And go ahead, Mr. Travis.
I was going to say, to your point with that, Roger, obviously there's an issue with cafeteria staff. There's an issue with bus drivers. There's an issue with parapros. There's an issue even from a maintenance standpoint. All these departments have supervisors. All these supervisors, I think, are under an agreement and get paid fairly well for their supervision work. Where's their responsibility for coming to the administration and saying, geez, we're running short, or gee whiz, it looks like maybe next summer we're not going to have enough people here. Gee whiz, it's the summertime and it doesn't appear we have enough cafeteria workers coming in the fall. These people continue to get paid their dollars that they get as a administrator. But I'm not seeing any action. I don't see those guys out actively looking for people. I don't see, until I talk to Chad about stuff on our website about looking for cafeteria workers, I don't see any of that stuff. Where are these people's responsibilities as supervisors to let the administration, number one, know that there could be a shortage coming down the road? And number two, what are they doing about it other than coming in to them? Where's the responsibility on their part as a supervisor to get this stuff taken care of in the first place?
On that regarding shortages, so recently, I go to the Mod Pizza like twice a week on the way home from work, and I wheel in there and lights are getting dimmed. I'm like, what's going on? So we're closing early now. I said, really? I said, and this place is really going. This place, they do a good job. And I'm like, what's up? And she's this young lady, I believe she's the manager. She said, well, we're hiring all the way down to 14. Going back to 14 in a food environment, or, fortunately there's only so many ovens and maybe they can do that. And it's not dangerous like our business. You can't do it. There's just too many liabilities. So I said, and she said, well, and then we don't have anybody who is old enough to stay as far as, it's over 18. And I'm like, oh boy. So here you have, and that's going down the line. So we see it in our own town, the same that we're dealing with. And I would share with you that, the applications and people coming in off the street, like in our business, that want to improve their position and learn more to train up, it's just not happening. So we're definitely going to need to change some things to catch these people, because it's just happening, I think, in every industry. And it's, so I think we need to respect, again, the position, and Bill brought it up. They have managers in each position. They did something one way 2 years ago or last year. Well, they're going to need to change, figure out how to modify their procedures to make sure that we don't have this problem. We change. We have to mold and develop with the element here. And I don't see it getting better anytime soon. So we don't want our students to go without. The budget's there to pay these folks. And if we have to, I want to break the bank, but I'll just say what I'm thinking. If you have to pay $5 more an hour to an employee than you are currently paying, well, you know what? If the service gets done, and if that's what the trend is going to, we don't really have a choice. We have to shock it. That's what they did with our employees at a recent time. Just recently, we lost some employees. They just paid them more and they walked off the job. What a shame to lose those employees that were doing a good job, and we never either had an opportunity. We call it a counter offer. You set them down and say, hey, we don't want to lose you. You've been a good employee. What's it going to take to keep you? I didn't hear any of that going on. Well, nope, just let them go. We'll find somebody else, because they were working for, whatever hourly wage it was. So I would suggest that's what I would like to see from the board direction, is we're going to have to change it, whether we have to retrain the people that are in charge of filling those departments' needs and give them some training to figure this out, because nobody knew this would happen. So in all fairness to those leaders, I understand. Trust me, I'm in it every day. And I think we all are. Anybody has a business or anybody has to work with other people. So, so that would be my defense of the position, but also I would request that we figure out a process that will help them to do their job. So then it doesn't overburden the other people. It shouldn't be overburdened. I think that was Bill's other point. And I'm in 100% of doing whatever I can do to help in that end from the board side.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Question for Dr. Outlaw. I know that always comes up. We could destroy somebody else's bus system if we were to jump to a certain number. Is this a county problem that we all need to get together and say, what are we all going to do?
So I've requested a meeting with Dr. Hubert. For those that don't know, our busing is run by the county. It's not a Brighton area schools busing, but Dr. Hubert and Alice Johnson, who used to be our transportation director, are assigned to Brighton. She's the head of transportation for the county. I've asked to have a meeting to talk about solutions. So we're definitely looking at that as far as transportation. Obviously, we addressed some of the wage issues with custodial. Some of the other areas that we're talking about, they have collective bargaining agreements. So it's a little bit more complex when you're dealing with unions and collective bargaining. The other thing I just want to throw out, and I know I mentioned this the last time we did this, is that we have to be careful a little bit. And I'm overly cautious, but for the last decade, I've been talking in a previous district and now here about the coming tidal wave of teacher shortage. And we've been talking about, this was pre-COVID, and our teacher prep programs, they're way down. They've been way down for almost a decade. And we did a great job. We got a lot of talent this year, which was great. We were really aggressive. We were early. Mr. Scaling did a fantastic job along with the principals in filling those roles. But we have to continue to do a great job of attracting our teachers, making this a great place for teachers to come. Because especially in areas like special education, CTE, science, math, these are areas that we're struggling to get people in. So I just want us to make sure that we have to take care of our finances so that we're able to continue to recruit and retain the best teachers possible in this district. Everybody's important to this organization, but we just have to be careful that when the government money that's propped us up this year, last year, and again, possibly next year, when that runs out, are we going to be able to sustain this long term? So those are just some cautions that I throw out there. I think we just have to think really long term when we're thinking about some of these topics.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I realize that it's a balancing act. I mean, we're not like a private corporation where we can generate more revenue by improving our product and selling more widgets. And I mean, and so it's a difficult problem. Every school district faces that difficult proposition. And obviously, what has happened relatively recently in terms of the labor market and all of the volatility and wages and inflation, it even makes it a further challenge from a balancing act. My only point in raising it was this has been an ongoing topic. It isn't going away. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that our focus has been on those positions that we have already lost and are in a shortage, but there are still others that are potentially vulnerable, and we need to make sure that we are, appropriately compensating
100%.
those folks.
Completely agree.
Then find ourselves in a situation in those positions.
Yep.
And that was really the point of my conversation.
Absolutely.
It's my daughter's company. They did a competitive wage analysis, and she called me and says, "Dad, they gave me a raise." I didn't even earn one. She said she was happy with her pay right up front. That's what they did. And I said, "Well, honey," I said, "that just means they want to keep you in their company." And she's working really hard. So whatever we have to do, we learn from each other on this one. And I will also share with you about the teacher situation. There was a time not that long ago, and maybe Bill remembers this, in our teacher cadet program, that our counseling was kind of steering away from teaching. Remember that? And what they were saying was, it doesn't pay well to be a teacher. And being a teacher may not be a great plan. That's a quote, by the way. And I'm like, excuse me? So personally, I love the teacher cadet program. And our students get to work under licensed professional teachers while they're in high school and determine if that's a career that they'd like to take on and go to college and come back. We've had several Brighton students come back and teach for us now, currently, correct? And recently I got to meet our health ops teacher. She was formerly a Brighton student. But I would suggest if we look into it, they may have had the teacher cadet program. So those are programs as a board that we can get behind. And our job and our not only our oath of office part of the job, that was really our job. It's supposed to be. We're caught up in all this other stuff, and we're supposed to be using the talent and these other energies. I really think we can use them to benefit. So, let's talk about where there's a shortage. We have maintenance. We have all these things. Well, I'll tell you what, I know we have some young people that would be in maintenance. We have young people that would like to be teachers. We have young people that are going to go and build the next spaceship. They're all here. So you never know. Maybe we're going to start employing from within. And look at that as an opportunity and take some of our students that want to work for us, and we'll fill the voids. We can do it. And again, we can come out further ahead by going through this tough time if we organize ourselves correctly. And I believe that this group's pretty darn smart. So we'll figure it out.
As someone who works in teacher preparation, I can tell you the numbers are way, way down. But the positive thing is I've seen some data coming out talking about job satisfaction, and actually the data for teachers is is pretty positive, that teachers are positive about their jobs. They do like that. So if we can encourage students to go into teaching, it's, really a good thing. Plus, the other thing that's happening is the certification is changing. So what's going to happen is teachers are going to be graduating with less range in what they can teach. So we're not going to have the flexibility of new hires coming out. I think 23, they're starting elementary programs. 22, they're starting elementary programs. 23, secondary. So.
Thank you, Dr. Krebs. All right. All right, that closes the board committee reports, Board of Education bulletins, and
I would like to make a motion that the board go into closed session for the purpose of approving the minutes for the September 29th and October 6th closed sessions.
supported by Ms. Reed, supported by Mr. Stahl. Roll call vote, please. Ms. Heffmeyer.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Dr. Krebs? Yes. Mr. Trombley?
Yep.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Conley? Mr. Meyer?
Yes. That passes 7-0. All right, so we are now going to be going into closed session. We will be returning from the closed session when we are concluded, but there is no further business for the board to attend to tonight. Thank you.